there are plenty of opportunities in schools for young people to succeed. However, I do feel like some schools are more privileged than others, which helps them take advantage of those opportunities more than those without.
Rather, we should think hard about the kind and number of opportunities we provide for them to develop and exhibit behavior and values that have personal and social benefit. So tell me about studying for the CRCT.
The teachers gave us this code to get on this CRCT practice thing you can get on your computer, and I did it probably like once or twice.
Did the teachers make you nervous when you were taking the test?
No, but Miss Jackson, our vice principal, she gathered us all around and told us what to do if we got nervous.
What did she say? Do you remember?
Like, one thing I remember is like deep breaths and stuff like that.
So do you like the CRCT? Yeah? It wasn't too hard?
Not bad.
Standardized measures can limit the development of competence by driving curricula toward the narrow demands of test preparation instead of allowing teachers to immerse students in complex problem solving and rich use of language.
I thought what Emma had to say about standardized testing was very interesting. We hear a lot today about how bad standardized tests can be, but Emma seemed to show just the opposite. She studied hard and worked well throughout the test. I really liked when she told me about her assistant principal bringing the third graders in and showing them some ways that helped them to cope with nervousness throughout the test. I still agree that standardized testing can be overused and doesn't really do much good, but Emma helped remind me that schools are still working to do their best and help their students while they take these tests.
Georgia is actively involved in developing career pathways and career clusters for high school students. Students will begin a pathway or a cluster in the 9th grade, and throughout their high school career they will be looking at career options and preparing themselves for a career or to go into a technical college or our regular university system. It'll give the students an opportunity to explore career options earlier and be better prepared for later on. Career clusters they'll be like an introductory class in 9th grade. For example, students may be interested in fine arts cluster, or maybe even a vocational, maybe agriculture or something like that. And they'll take so many courses that are part of that cluster, and it'll be like a seal, if you will, on their diploma, an area that they focus in throughout their high school career.
Thus, as the education scholar Theodore Lewis points out, vocational knowledge is not perceived as valid school knowledge. This bias will continue to limit a creative rethinking of the academic-vocational divide.
I'm really excited that there are people in today's school system that are working to break the academic-vocational divide. I definitely think career clusters are a great idea. This gives students the opportunity to explore different subjects and think about what they want to do later in life. I know that I had no clue what I wanted to do when I graduated high school, so I'm hoping that career clusters will help students graduate with some guidance.
What knowledge is worth the most? That's kind of a tricky question to answer because it depends on what you're basing your knowledge off of. Are you basing knowledge off standards or knowledge off what you want the children to actually learn according to them? Children learn differently, and standards are important in all aspects of life, but maybe instead of setting the standards beforehand, they should be set according to the children themselves. For example, children in a poor school system are going to learn differently than children in a privileged school system because of the things that they've been exposed to throughout their life.
In our classroom, I spent very little time tailoring lessons or activities to standards. Rather, we developed a criteria based on what we felt was most important. When this occurred, prescribed standards such as reading with fluency or reading for understanding were met.
Book Spectacular Things Happen Along the Way perfectly describes what Emily is saying. In the book, the teacher decides to base his criteria off of what is meaningful to the students. Emily believes the same thing. When teachers' lessons are based off of what is important to the students, then teachers can teach without the use of predetermined lessons. Different classes of students will find different things important, and it is really crucial for educators to remember this. Although the roads taken may be different, students can still end up with a wonderful education. By developing criteria that is important to your students, everyone can succeed.
There are a lot of stereotypes within culture. You can't really judge any one race because, I mean, you might have black people who, I mean, you know, are said to be menaces to society and, you know, thug-like. And then you have some black people who are very productive, they're hardworking, they're intelligent, and they get what they can from life. And, you know, it's just, it goes with judging, you know, and you can't judge a book by its cover. You can't do it. And that's something that America needs to wake up with. One time I was in the 2nd grade and I did have a racist, I guess, teacher. Even the smallest thing, she would send me to the corner and she would interact with like the rest of the class who was, you know, all of pretty much the same race. You see it especially in Texas, where I was going to school at elementary school at the time. Yes, they should work on that because, I mean, that just puts people in awkward positions. That puts their students in awkward positions. You know, and it really disrupts the learning process.
The assumption of rightness is often reinforced by the fact that dominant groups tend to know very little about those people whom they define as the other. Individuals from the dominant group are usually unaware of their own power and can carry on the daily activities of their lives without any substantial knowledge about or meaningful interaction with those people who are not part of the dominant group.
White privilege and people undermining minorities is definitely something that needs to be worked on. I found it interesting that Mike, who is only 20 years old, has already experienced obvious racism and was able to recognize it at a young age. I think that people need to realize that racism is still a very important topic for today. I also found it interesting that Mike said that teachers definitely need to work on racism and prejudice. As a teacher, I'm hopeful that I will be able to provide equality to all my students, no matter what race, class, color, or gender they are.